Hey guys, welcome back to We Watched the Movie. Jay, Mike, bringing you Spider-Man 2, the second sequel in the trilogy of the Raimi. Yeah, Spider-Man 2, fucking amazing ass movie. Dr. Octopus is the main villain in this one. Spider-Man 2 has fucking... it was amazing.
It was.
It was amazing. Like, after the first Spider-Man to this one, you really never... It's hard to imagine that a sequel would outdo the predecessor, and this one really outshines it completely.
Well, it just took away all the shit. It took away all the shit. You got Doc Ock, he's the main villain. You know, Harry's still pissed off.
But he actually was better in this one, like how he actually handled it.
Yeah, and James Franco got better as an actor a little bit. But he was pissed off about his dad dying and stuff like that. But there's just certain scenes in this movie that just like blew you away. Like when he stops the train, his mask is half ripped off, the city sees who he is, and they like go to protect him or whatever. That was fucking awesome.
You know, the best thing about this movie is, honestly, overall, every character, the main Spider-Man being obviously the one that you want to focus on, they're all fleshed out in such a unique, not a unique, but a really effective way. And that, like, it draws you in as an audience, and you're like, oh, fuck yeah, I can get behind this guy now. Because Peter Parker has finally moved out of his Aunt May's house. It's about time, you little fucking sluckback. But he moves out of his Aunt May's house, and he's on his own, he's in this apartment, and he's trying to do his own. He's like a bicyclist messenger, and he's like, you know, God's pizza is a guarantee. It's, you know, 10-minute guarantee. You know, like,
you feel bad for him because he rips that little shit off his helmet and he's like, you suck. But no, and that whole thing, like that whole, like, I'm trying to gather my time together, that's relatable. Well, he's trying to do all this shit at the same time. He can't tell Mary Jane who he is, but he really fucking wants to. He's trying to do good at school, but he's doing shitty, and it really, like, shows the aspect, more than any of the other movies, it shows the aspect that he's trying to be Spider-Man and being, like, the savior of everybody, but also trying to be a regular human being, and, like, all these people are giving a shit from Aunt May, Mary Jane, the thing. And it's like, fuck, man, he's fucking Spider-Man.
Well, that's what the whole thing is with Peter Parker as Spider-Man. Like, that's what everybody loved about the comic book series, and that's what everybody loves about the character, is that he's a normal guy struggling with bills, his social life, everything is he's trying to get all this together and trying to make it work, while at the same time being this selfless hero that he can never let anybody know about, because if his identity was ever exposed, he would, you know, hurt the ones he loved the most. So that really shows that in a perfect way in this movie, because, like I said, it shows his struggles, it shows his social awkwardness, trying to get with Mary Jane. I almost said with Aunt May. That's a fucking different kind of movie. But trying to get with Mary Jane, and he can't do it because he doesn't have time. But then he decides, I'm just gonna not be Spider-Man anymore, and I'm gonna fucking do what I want to do. Fuck it. And it you know, it does
that classic like cover of a comic book that you see, like Spider-Man no more.
That was actually a comic book.
It's cool to see those little moments like that, and he goes through it, and he tries to discover who he is or whatever, but. Like, this one touches on Spider-Man more, like the true Spider-Man, more than any of the other movies does.
It gets to the heart of the character.
Yeah,
that's the best thing about it. And I know that sounds corny as fuck when you say the heart, but it does. It touches me somewhere in the face.
And Doc Ock's the main bad guy, and he goes and he's just trying to do a school report on him or whatever, and then all this shit goes wrong and whatever, and he saves Franco.
I actually liked Dr. Octopus in this movie. The guy that played him was awesome.
Underrated. Like, you wouldn't see that. You see that guy and you're like, that guy's boring. I don't know who that guy is. But he really is a perfect Doc Ock. And the arms, they did the arms so fucking well that when he's climbing up a building and shit, he's actually scary. The main thing I remember about seeing this movie for the first time is when he's in the hospital. And, like, the arms start going crazy or whatever. It was actually scary. And that's Sam Raimi.
Oh, God, that was so perfect,
That's Sam Raimi at his best right there. You're actually scared for a second there. And Doc Ock seems like a really, like, bad guy. And I wish to God that they didn't go with the whole, oh, I'm going to take Mary Jane hostage and you have to save her again. They did it in all three movies. I wish they didn't do that. But apart from that, you got the awesome scene when they're in the cafe and he's getting ready to tell her, I'm Spider-Man. And you just want it so bad, it's like, let's just get the shit over with. You know what? And then he throws the car through the thing.
Yeah, well, that was the trailer. I remember when that trailer first came out, you hear that thump, thump, and you see, that was badass. I love that. Yeah. And actually, going back to that scene when you were talking about in the hospital, Raimi had a lot more of his Raiminess, his seeds spread out in this movie that I've ever seen. That scene in the hospital alone is a throwback. If you watch it, break it down, it's literally Evil Dead. It's literally Evil Dead. Like when the guy looks at the little chainsaw, he's like, and you hear like the music, it's audio, and he grabs the chainsaw and he starts like trying to, you know, cut off the octopus arm, and then you see the octopus arm from the POV, and it's the camera rushing at the guy and he screams. That was Evil Dead.
It's perfect.
It was exactly Evil Dead. Yeah. And you know, obviously they put Bruce Campbell back in there, and it really just had I don't know, it felt like Raimi was really able to spread his wings in this movie and just be like, I'm going to have fun with this, but I can tell an effective, emotional story at the same time, and I'm not under pressure. I just got to make a really good movie, and that's what you got. You got a fucking amazing movie.
And that's what it comes out to. It's the perfect in-between between Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 1, you gotta have to feel it out. I'm making a superhero movie. You got all this,
and
like,
Spider-Man.
this weird stuff. You know, Goblin has the weird mask and stuff like that, and it's this weird, like, play-like thing going on. The second one is in between that and the overdone stuff of Spider-Man 3. That's what makes Spider-Man 2 so good. It's the perfect Spider-Man movie. To me, it's the #1 Spider-Man movie
I agree.
of all the Spider-Man movies. You've got a great fucking bad guy. He's scary. You've got all this shit going on with Peter Parker. He's trying, and it's real life. Like, he's trying, I mean, really, if you were a superhero, okay? And like, it's the quintessential question. It's the quintessential question. Like, if you're a superhero, it's like, I mean, and it goes with any walk of life. Like, if you're a social worker or whatever, you know, if you're a social worker sitting at home and you're like, oh, I'm going to enjoy my time and I'm going to watch a movie, and you're thinking, well,
I have to do something.
I could be saving a kid right now.
Yeah.
Spider-Man deals with that same thing. He's like, you know, I have to deal with my life too. I have to make myself happy. But at the same time, if I'm doing that, you know, someone's getting robbed, something's happening somewhere, and it really deals with that question really well, especially when he goes to help Aunt May move. Yeah. He goes to help Aunt May move.
Ant-Man? What movie are you speaking of?
He goes to help Aunt May move, and she gives him this little speech, and that speech, like,
there's a hero in all of us.
Touches the heart.
It does.
It really does. That speech was great, and it's like truth. It's like, you know what? You might not be able to do what you're going to do, but you're the hero that everybody needs. It's the Batman turned on its head, you know, the whole thing.
You really cared about the characters, even the bad guy. And, you know, I've read Spider-Man comic books for a long time. I don't read them anymore, but I used to read comic books all the time, and Spider-Man was one of my favorites. I never really gave a fuck about Doc Ock. I mean, he's just a dude with goggles, and he was a fat guy with a bowl cut with, I got octopuses and I'm going to do something. But, you know, this guy, like, you could actually relate to him, like, his emotional, like, state of being. And he's, like, arrogant at one point. They made him intimidating. You know, he's like, he can fuck some shit up. Like, it's not like he's just a joke. Like, he will mess your face up if he has to. But at the same time, you're like, I get it why he's doing this. Even though he's being controlled by these mechanical arms.
He wants to be successful.
He wants to be successful, and he wants to leave a legacy behind. And he's actually doing it in an altruistic way. He wants to give power, like, a never-ending renewable resource for the people of, I almost said Metropolis.
Well,
people of New York City.
That's his whole thing. Like, if you have power, use it for good. And he taught Spider-Man that, and then he fucked up on it. Yeah, like that.
And that's what I'm talking about, dude. The emotional inflections in this just really go throughout the entire movie, and that's what I got behind this movie. That was the #1 thing I always wanted in a Spider-Man movie, is to make sure that you capture not just the great sequences of action with Spider-Man flying around the city and beating ass. And you want to see that. I want to see that. But you also want to have it where it anchors it in the real world. Because if anything else, Spider-Man as Peter Parker as Spider-Man is a real world guy just dealing with issues that everybody faces. You know, I don't have the money to pay my bills next month. I got to do whatever I can to pay it. I got this going on. I can't get to here.
And you're talking about a guy who could go up to a bank robbery while it's happening, save the day, and still just like grab a fucking bag of money, and save his Aunt May, save everybody, and he still does the right thing. Now, I don't even really agree with that. But that was my Aunt May, and she was about to lose her house. Maybe I would do the same thing, but that's
why you're not a hero. He is.
But that's why he is who he is. You know, she's struggling with her money issues. She's struggling with all this stuff. It really just shows like, to the fucking darkness, who Spider-Man really is. That's what makes it such a good movie.
Well, I'm not trying to, I don't want to keep going back to the emotional part, because I know I already bored you with the emotional part, but I want to say one more thing. I'm sorry. The only other thing I want to say about that is, you know, you knew it was going to happen eventually. I didn't know it was going to happen so quickly when he was going to reveal his identity to Mary Jane, but whatever. But when it did happen, it was handled so well. When he turns around and he looks at her and she sees him, and then just that one moment, and she's like, that little sigh or breath that she has, it was perfect. I went and seen this with my wife or girlfriend at the time, and she was like, and she grabbed me and shit, because it was just so like impactful scene, you know, like even she wasn't even a Spider-Man, but it was just an impactful scene.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, like Mary Jane, we both agree on this. She annoys us both throughout this whole movie. Kirsten Dunst was a terrible choice. I thought she did terrible. She was all self-centered. She was terrible. In this movie, she was the most bearable. Like her place where she was the most understandable out of all the other movies. You were like relieved when finally, like, he's like, I'm Spider-Man. You know, you were relieved by that, and you got to see his struggle with all that. And you got to see why he did it. But you really, in this movie, more than any other, you get to see like, how much Spider-Man, like Peter Parker, really just cares about his family, about Mary Jane, about everybody around him, enough to where he's just willing to go through hell for all of them.
Well, if nothing else, one scene that, like, there's so many memorable scenes in this movie that you can pick out. But the you brought it up earlier. The one scene where it shows like how far he's willing to go, his selfless act, and he's willing to give his body and life to the city is the train. Yeah. When he's grabbing it and you see like the fucking costume start ripping on his bicep when he's trying to stop this train, and then he's like exhausted and they pull him in, and you know he's like, he's just a kid. I didn't like that too much when they. I loved it. I didn't like it where his face was exposed because it's Spider-Man. I don't want everybody to fucking know who he is, but I got over it because just how impactful. Like I said, if anything else, this movie is very impactful with memorable scenes throughout it, emotional greatness. And Raimi, you did a fucked up good job.
It's a 9.5 for me,
dude.
It's almost.
You know what? That's crazy because I've had a choice in my head that's been floating around. I don't know. I was like saying a 9.
Like a turd in the toilet in the septic system.
You have to be the hero that everybody wants you to be. I'm gonna go with a 10. I think it's not as good as Avengers. I'm not saying that, but it is definitely up in the upper echelons of greatest superhero movies I've ever seen. Bar none. It really is. Because this movie really, to me, I mean, I know Spider-Man set the bar for like what superhero movies became evolved to, but this one really like showed you can have a great superhero story, but at the same time keep it grounded and realistic. At the and that, I can't even find anything wrong with it.
The question of the day is, what sequel, superhero, any other, do you think supersedes the original more so than any other?
RoboCop 2.
What?
RoboCop 2 to RoboCop 1? Yeah, I'm gonna go with RoboCop. Don't touch it, ED209.
Why do you say this?
Why are you slap fighting?
Really? You think RoboCop 2 is better than RoboCop?
I love RoboCop 2, dude. Oh my God. It's like RoboCop 2 is a pure cinematic experience that I want to.
I'll go X-Men 2 over X-Men 1. Because they pushed the envelope a little bit.
But in RoboCop 2, you had Kane, and he was a heroin junkie and a robot. You can't go wrong with that.
You can even go Superman 2 versus Superman 1. Because you got
Superman 2 was by far
background. Who gives a shit?
Actually, that's not, I was gonna say Star Trek 2: The Wrath of Khan.
There's a lot of shit to do some.
Julie's done.
There is a lot of shit to. You said Julie's come.
You're just going with straight sequels?
Yeah.
I thought you said superhero sequels.
Yeah.
We watched a movie. Yeah. We watched a movie.